I want to bring in Ali Noorani. He's the president and CEO of the National Immigration Forum and host of the Only in America podcast. Thank you so much for being with us, sir. We appreciate your time tonight.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. A lot has been made about whether this is a crisis or not. In terms of the numbers and this obvious influx we're seeing now, is this unprecedented? And how much of it do you think is because there's been such a sharp contrast going from Trump to Biden on this particular issue of immigration?
I would give you a kind of a both and type of answer. On one hand, it is not unprecedented. Really, since 2014, every spring we have seen an increase in unaccompanied children presenting at the U.S.-Mexico border to ask for protection, just like we're seeing these days. On the other hand, what we're left to deal with, is a Trump administration that pretty much gutted the nation's immigration system. So the Biden administration, working against an immigration system that frankly no longer exists, but also against cartels that are selling lies in terms of dreams to Honduran families, to Central American families. So they're working kind of against two factors to try to stand up the infrastructure and the processes so that these children can go through a system safely, compassionately, and then pursue their legal case here in the U.S.
And I want to ask you this question, too, in terms of President Biden reversing so much of what President Trump did on this issue of immigration. So clearly sending a signal to the world that we want to be friendlier to immigration, but at the same time saying, well, wait, the border's still closed. It's not an open border. Is that a mixed message at all? And if so, how can the White House fine tune that?
So what I think one of the most important things that the White House is doing right now is that they are actually putting resources back into Central America. So over the Trump administration, you saw a lot of dollars and programs being pulled out of the region that were actually making significant headway in terms of reducing violence, corruption, impunity, poverty. All those programs really start to backslide over the last 4 years. So by reinvesting in those programs, by standing up a program called Central American Minors, people can, number one, hopefully restore confidence in their society. But number two, if children need to come to the U.S., they can apply for refugee status through this CAM program closer to their home in Central America. So there are things that the Biden administration can do in the region to solidify things, to provide people access to protection, but ultimately really kind of take on the cartels on their home turf and really try to disrupt the message that the cartels are sending to these communities.
And we remember the whole controversy during the Trump years, kids in cages, and it was a big uproar both domestically and abroad. Now we're hearing reports that some of the facilities the kids are being held in now, unsanitary, they're overcrowded. So what does the injection of FEMA mean for that process and for the well-being of those crossing the border?
So back in 2014 and 15, the Obama administration actually did something very similar. They deployed FEMA resources to the border. And so what does that mean? It means that if a child is presenting at the border and is in CBP custody, hopefully for no longer than 72 hours, but as soon as possible, they are moved from CBP to FEMA. FEMA is standing up facilities that are, in essence, better suited for children, whether they're soft-sided tents or existing buildings on military bases or otherwise. Then FEMA, through that infrastructure, has a place that Health and Human Services can deploy their staff to begin the process of vetting the young people, but then also to see if there is a legal guardian here in the U.S. for these young people to be with while their case is going through the process.
And I feel like every president comes into office and makes a promise with immigration, and Congress never seems to get on board. We can't seem to get it done in a meaningful, lasting way. Reading the tea leaves right now, do you think there's anything of a bipartisan nature that Congress could get through to begin chipping away at what has been a decades-long issue in this country?
You know, so the clip that you played before I came on was Kevin McCarthy, Congressman Kevin McCarthy at the border. And I think he used the word, this is a heartbreak at the border. Well, the Minority Leader McCarthy has a great opportunity this week to address that heartache by beginning to fix our nation's immigration system and supporting the DREAM Act in the House of Representatives, as well as the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. We need to start to build bipartisan blocks of discrete reforms to the immigration system so that, number one, people can come out of the shadows, dreamers or farm workers are contributing as we recover from COVID-19. But number two, restore the confidence of the American public has in our legislative process. And, if Congressman McCarthy wants to follow through on the feelings that he felt today on the border, he has a great opportunity this week.
And we have a few seconds left. One last question. We get so wrapped up in policy and the images of the crossings that there is a humanitarian issue at the core of this. Just explain to folks who may not get it the situations in Central America and other parts of the world that lead these folks to want to get into the country to begin with.
For any one of us who has a child or a parent or a brother or a sister, if that a family member is living in a society like what we see in Central America, where violence is rampant, where poverty is extreme, where corruption is the norm, we would do everything in our power to help our child, our brother, our sister, our parent to get to a safer place. And ultimately, that is what people are looking to the United States of America for, is for protection. And that's our moral responsibility, but also we have a self-interest. We have a self-interest in being the beacon of freedom in the world.
Humanitarian versus the legalities and the logistics, which is why this has been such a tough, long-standing issue. Thanks so much for your time and for your insight time. We certainly appreciate it, Ali.
Thank you so much.
Marnie?